Thank you all for being available, and apologies for the slight shift in time from just to allow Mike to make his way into the office via Wellington's finest rush hour traffic. We spoke to some, if not all of you, yesterday, but obviously we'll hand over to Mike just for a few introductory comments and then for some questions. Mike.
Morena koutou. Thanks for taking this up, Hannah and Richard. How's my comms?
We might just need to hop on mute potentially, other than Mike.
Some real feedback coming through from somewhere. Is it me?
I don't think so. Is it? I think Simon's still on unmute.
Oh, we'll try it again. Kia ora koutou, Mike Bush here. As you know, we presented our independent report yesterday to the Joint Committee on the performance of Hawke's Bay Regional Council Group Civil Defence and Emergency Management. That was tabled and accepted. The Joint Committee then conducted a number of interviews, and from my perspective, very pleasing that they wanted not only to accept the report, but own the recommendations and drive it from there on. I'm here now to answer any questions you might have that haven't already been answered, or you would like them re-answered. So yeah, I'm in your hands.
So, Mike Bush, why weren't you available yesterday for questions when we needed you?
Yes, I was there. As you saw, I was available presenting the report. The Joint Committee were very much of the view that they wanted to accept and own the report, own the recommendations, and then talk to the implementation.
But in a typical situation like this, we would be able to, in plenty of other reviews and reports before this, interview the lead report author, which is yourself. We had asked for you to be available. Had you declined?
No, I was available last night. I'm available now. I'm always available when I do these things. Yeah, how that was managed was not for me.
So who made the decision for you not to be available yesterday?
I was available, but the Joint Committee, the mayors, I've seen.
Oh, that just glitched. Sorry. Do you mind saying that again?
So the Joint Committee chairs, mayors and members were very keen to front this, to accept the report and then talk to how they would implement the recommendations. I was very much available yesterday evening and I'm very much available now.
So in regards to this report, can you please explain to me what your key recommendation is here, if you had to sum up what you want to see and what needs to change?
Very hard to sum it up in one sentence because we have 9 Tier 1 recommendations and 66 Tier 2 recommendations. To give a little bit of background, we looked at this through the lens of the 4 R's, Civil Defence Best Practice +1, and our recommendations are aimed both locally, regionally and nationally. In summary, there need to be performance improvements locally and regionally, and they're very much aware of that. And we point to the why. And nationally, the model does need to change to ensure that there's a far more coordinated, cohesive response to any similar crisis.
Had Hawke's Bay Civil Defence learned from previous reviews in 2018 and 2020?
Look, I believe they've definitely learned from those, and we say in our report that actually that gave them a level of confidence. One of our findings in the report was that they took what we describe as an optimism bias into this, where they should have been planning for every scenario, including worst case scenario, which is what they got. So we found that they were caught short because of that.
And do you think that the region is any better placed if there was another cyclone of this magnitude to hit tomorrow?
Can you say that again? Someone cut across.
Do you think that Hawke's Bay is any better placed to deal with another cyclone of this magnitude if it was to hit tomorrow?
Look, the report was presented yesterday, but our findings, they haven't been a stranger to our findings or our views. We undertook this review over 7 months. I've got no doubt that they're moving to fill any gaps, but we have presented them with a horizon which will actually take some time to implement. But I do believe, to answer your question, that they certainly won't be taking an over-optimistic approach to any further pending disasters.
Thanks, sorry, can I answer the question, please? Do you think that the councils need to apologise, and do you think people need to be held accountable for their actions or inactions?
Andrew, that's a very fair question, and I know it's on everyone's lips, but it's not a question for me. My role was to present a report based on the terms of reference, and that's what we've done.
Surely you have an opinion.
Of course I have an opinion, Andrew, but it's not relevant.
And when it comes to the report, I mean, these recommendations must be fairly urgent. How are they going to be achieved? Are they achievable?
These recommendations are achievable. We wouldn't have put in recommendations that we didn't believe were achievable, but they take a really coordinated response to this. Been very clear that changes need to be made at local and regional level, but unless they're made at a national level as well, we will continue to set good people up to fail. Minister Mitchell, the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Minister, is right across these recommendations. And I've got no doubt that having received this report, and today he receives another report, I'll be working very hard on how to implement recommendations.
Your report also talked about that there had been many resignations in the council since the cyclone and that they were struggling to fill a lot of those positions. Would that impact their ability to improve going forward?
Whether it would or wouldn't is difficult to answer. I think the main point there is that everyone involved in these responses are well-intentioned. They do their level best. But sometimes their best in these situations is not enough, and it's not what the community deserve. The point we make is that there is experience and expertise and capability out there that needs to be brought to the fore, and the model needs to understand that. How do we leverage the capability that is within our country so that every time we anticipate such a crisis or disaster, we bring that capability together, we coordinate it professionally to ensure that we do our level best for our people.
Can we just, sorry, Abby's just got her hand up. I'll just go to Abby for a second. Sorry, Abby.
Yeah, sorry, my button to unmute is like over there, so I'm just doing just got a few questions for a couple of my colleagues. How valuable did you find the iwi and community response when Cyclone Gabrielle struck, and was this valuable for wider community, not just Māori?
When we talk about mana whenua, iwi, hapu, we saw through this response, and I've seen it many times before, there's incredible capability and resource that sits within iwi and marae. And they really did look after each other. The point we make is how do we bring them in to ensure that we continue to build that capability and resilience before a disaster, but also recognizing how much they can contribute when a disaster does occur. Something we point to very clearly. They must be included. They have the capability, they have the resource. But unless we coordinate our response appropriately with all of that capability, we won't get the right outcome.
The report says Ngāti Kahanunu was left out of decision-making. You've made some recommendations for changing legislation to have iwi response written into law. Can you just explain what you think should happen?
So when I talked before about looking through disaster management or crisis management through the 4 or 5 R lens, the real value is in the reduction and readiness before the response stage. So working with iwi, working with community to ensure that they're equipped, they're trained, they have their own expertise and resource, and they practice and simulate any response. And they do that with civil defence and other emergency management people. And then when it comes to the response, they stand up, but they're included. They must be included in the communications and the coordinated response. That didn't occur anywhere near as well as it should have.
Why do you think that iwi recommendations are critical for councils and government to act on and not just let it pass by?
Sorry, Abby, I got every second word of that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just repeat that one again. Why do you think that iwi recommendations are critical for councils and government to act on and not just let them pass by?
Because of the capability and resource that iwi and the practice that iwi bring to disaster management. There are places within our country where this works really well, and I've seen it where it doesn't work well. So it would be foolish not to engage at an early stage all of that capability and experience and resource. They're well set up for things like this. They're well practiced.
And just last one from me, how could the legislation be changed? How could the legislation being changed improve what happens next time in your view?
So our recommendation is that when the government look at any changes, that they take a first principles approach. So it's really important to work out the role of the centre or the national role, the regional role and the local role. So who leads? For example, the national role might be to build national capability, to provide coordination, bring expertise and resource, because it's still important in any crisis that there is a level of local leadership, people who know their communities, but that capability and experience must be built beforehand.
Do you mind just taking me back to some of those findings? I just wondered, one of the things I've been talking to people about today is that lack of information getting through from locals when they were saying, hey, our rivers are at huge levels we've never seen before, way above bowler, and then no action being taken. Can you please tell me about your findings around that lack of being taken seriously?
Yes, and we definitely point to that. We spoke to a number of people who contacted who they believed was civil defence, but they definitely contacted officials to give warning and were told that they were overreacting, and that happened on a number of occasions, according to the people we spoke with. That's really relevant in terms of situational awareness and taking the right approach into disaster management. So you must have a way to understand everything that you are told. We call it intelligence gathering, and that will then inform your response. And you need to get it from multiple sources. You need to verify it. But to tell people that they're overreacting is exactly what should not occur.
And when it came to those people being told they were overreacting, just to point to one example that we've been made aware of, we have emails between, a hydrologist and the civil defence, and he was sending emails at 11 o'clock that night saying, and he's an expert in the council in hydrology. Was that part of the review, the fact that his email and his professional advice was ignored?
We're aware of it. I'm confident it's referenced in the review. But again, it comes to taking all the information available, and even reaching out for further information is a really important part of any response.
Is there any explanation here as to why such information would be ignored?
No, I can't explain that.
The very nature of New Zealand's emergency services at the grassroots level is volunteers. Do you think that system needs to change, where we have, for example, with FENS, we have a more professional, full-time fire service?
One of the things we point to, Andrew, very much is that there is so much capability out there. Volunteers absolutely have their place. We need good people doing good things, but they must be in the right roles. So those important roles, whether they're leadership or leadership support roles, need to be filled by experienced and capable people. Because when you have a crisis like this that turns into a fatal crisis, there is a lot of pressure on people, and they need to be experienced. They need to have the capability. That's what our people deserve. So we've got to find a way of leveraging that and bringing that into the operating model.
Was there anything in your findings that shocked you personally?
I've done a few of these before, Andrew. One of the challenges with this is the trauma that's been visited upon these people. So many people lost their lives and livelihoods. What surprised me is how resilient New Zealanders are. And so many people said, but we were the lucky ones when they weren't.
Just in terms of the conspiracy theories that that went around at the time, and I'm sure you've heard a number of them, but there were talk of bodies floating down rivers and things like this. How was that managed, and how do you think that could be better managed?
Again, when you run an operation like this, a crisis response operation, every piece of information is important, and they must be verified, or as best as possible. I've heard those stories as we conducted those reviews. There are still people who believe that, but there is no verification of those stories.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I just realised that. I was just going to say, I think, Abby, your hand's still up, but I'm assuming that's from earlier, not related to this. So just into the group. Sorry to make you roll up.
Unraise it, sorry, but yeah, I'm all done.
Good. Are there no other questions from anyone else?
Just one more. Sir Jerry Mataparai's report is due out, I think, today, actually. Did you have any coordination with him at all? Because obviously his is across the North Island where the events. Was there any sort of symmetry and working together, or is it completely separate?
It is a separate report, Andrew, but we did communicate with Sir Jerry and his team on a number of occasions. We haven't shared our reports, although ours is now publicly online, but we have spoken a number of times to ensure that there is compatibility and that there is a sharing of ideas.
Just lastly, just to clarify, how quickly would you expect some of these recommendations, especially those top 9 tier 1, how quickly would you expect or would you hope to see those in practice?
I would like to see the process put in place immediately, and the Joint Committee have asked for some advice on how that might be done. So I've got some ideas, but the most important thing is to get the process underway immediately.
And just to clarify, in regards to Sandra Hazelhurst's recommendations yesterday, you've been invited, you've been asked, right, to be a part of how they implement it?
They are looking for some independent advice. We haven't locked anything down as yet, Alexa.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. I think that's us. If you have any follow-up, feel free to reach out to me directly and we can coordinate as required.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
See ya.
all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Heather.